Hello again, and welcome to episode 5 of VAT Update from Tax Essentials for Advisors. In this episode, we'll be covering updates to HMRC guidance on the VAT DIY Builders scheme and 2 cases on exemption, one returning to the all too common issue of supplies of staff, and the other looking at whether the law on welfare services actually means what it says. First then, HMRC has updated several parts of its guidance on the DIY Builders scheme. A reminder, the DIY Builders scheme is a special VAT refund scheme for certain self-build construction and conversion projects on dwellings and some other residential or charitable buildings. So, if I decide to build my own home, which, to be clear, would be a terrible idea, I may be able to recover VAT on certain qualifying costs like building materials under this scheme. There are strict conditions, limits, and short timeframes for submitting claims. That has left many DIY builders confused and frustrated, and it's become common to see these disputes in the VAT tribunals in recent years. HMRC's guidance now includes extra detail on what to do if a claim is rejected or not paid in full. Broadly, your options are provide additional information in the same format you submitted the original invoices and quote your DIY reference number, ask for a review by HMRC officer not previously involved, appeal to an independent tribunal. If you are advising a client or thinking of using the scheme yourself, work through those rules carefully. The conditions are tricky and the submission window is narrow. Miss it and you could be significantly out of pocket. Our first case is First Alternative Medical Staffing Limited. This case sits in one of those areas that constantly throws up VAT issues, the supply of staff. The taxpayer was an employment business supplying nurses and care assistants to NHS and private hospitals and care homes. It charged a commission and the employment costs payable to staff. VAT was charged only on the commission. The charge of the employment costs was treated as VAT exempt. There's a long procedural history I won't get into, but briefly the taxpayer had already failed to persuade the Court of Appeal to let it rely retrospectively on an HMRC concession known as the Nursing Agency's concession. After that failed, the taxpayer now argued that its services were exempt under the healthcare exemption because they were closely related to medical care. That argument fell away fast. The healthcare exemption at issue only applies to state-regulated institutions, and it was common ground that the employment business was not state-regulated. The appeal therefore failed. Even if the taxpayer had been state-regulated, the tribunal wouldn't have allowed exemption because it decided that the services were not closely related to medical care. If you work with employment businesses, VAT must be considered from the start. These arrangements get complicated very quickly. And for non-employment businesses, recharging staff between entities is also a frequent source of unexpected VAT issues. Cascade Care is a tribunal case on the exemption for health and welfare. The taxpayer provided specialist residential and supported living services to adults with mental health needs, autism, learning disabilities, and acquired brain injuries at sites in England and in Wales. Unusually, the taxpayer argued that it should charge VAT, while HMRC argued that the services were exempt. Where this happens, read between the lines and you'll usually find that the issue is VAT recovery on costs. If the services are exempt, the provider cannot reclaim VAT on inputs. If they're taxable, they can. Now, there is an exemption for welfare services supplied by state-regulated private welfare institutions. A drafting quirk in the legislation, though, meant that, taken literally, services provided in Wales didn't meet the definition of state-regulated, and so, the taxpayer argued, those Welsh services should be VATable. The tribunal disagreed. It concluded that this was one of the rare cases where an obvious drafting error could be corrected so that the rules should be read to include the Welsh sites, so the services were exempt. A good try by the taxpayer, but the argument was arguably just a bit too clever. And that's the end of another VAT update. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to presenting a further update in a couple of weeks' time.
Please do visit our webshop to view our full range of solutions From our in-depth commentary and guidance to our advice-led newsletters and media content, stay tuned for a short video introducing our dedicated AI tax tool.